the CEO and the janitor. Respect and humility. Have you ever wondered what truly defines a person's greatness? Is it the size of their office? The number of zeros in their paycheck? Or is it something much deeper, something invisible, yet unforgettable? Today's story is about a powerful CEO and a humble janitor. It's a story that will remind you why titles fade, money disappears, but respect and humility remain eternal. High above the city skyline stood a gleaming glass tower. Inside its top floor sat Mr. Collins, a CEO admired by the world, feared by competitors, and envied by employees. He had everything: wealth, power, influence. But with all his success, he carried an invisible wall of pride. Every morning, as he walked through the lobby, he would pass by James, the old janitor. James always smiled warmly and greeted him, "Good morning, sir. Wishing you a wonderful day." But the CEO never responded. Sometimes he gave a slight nod, other times he walked past as if James didn't exist. To him, James was just a janitor, someone invisible in the grand machine of his empire. Yet, James never stopped smiling. He carried his broom with quiet dignity, cleaning floors that others dirtied, whispering to himself, "Every job has meaning. Every life has value." One winter morning, as snowflakes dusted the streets outside, Mr. Collins rushed to an important board meeting. Investors were waiting, numbers were on the line, and his reputation was at stake. But as he stepped into the elevator, something went wrong. The lights flickered. The elevator jolted. Then, everything stopped. He pressed the buttons frantically, but nothing worked. For the first time in years, the men who controlled empires felt powerless. Minutes felt like hours. Panic rose in his chest. Down in the lobby, James noticed the elevator had stalled. Without hesitation, he called maintenance, reassured the frightened staff, and calmly knocked on the elevator door. "Sir, it's going to be all right," James said gently. His voice was steady, comforting, like a lighthouse in the storm. For the first time, the CEO listened to the janitor. In that dark, confined space, titles meant nothing. The men in the $1,000 suit and the men in worn-out shoes were suddenly equals. After nearly an hour, the doors finally creaked open. Fresh air rushed in, and with it, relief. Mr. Collins stumbled out, pale and shaken. And there stood James, extending his hand. Not with arrogance, not with pity, but with genuine kindness. "Take it slow, sir. You're safe now." The CEO hesitated for a moment, staring at the rough, calloused hand of the janitor. Then, slowly, he placed his own hand in it. That single gesture felt heavier than all his boardroom deals combined. That evening, as Mr. Collins sat in his luxurious office, the city lights shining beneath him, he couldn't stop thinking about James. He had shaken thousands of hands in his career, politicians, billionaires, celebrities. But somehow, the handshake of a janitor stayed with him the longest. Why? Because it carried humility. It carried respect without expectation. For the first time, the CEO asked himself a question he had never considered: what good is success if I cannot treat others with dignity? The next morning, something unusual happened. When James greeted him with his usual smile, the CEO stopped, looked him in the eye, and replied, "Good morning, James. Thank you for yesterday." James chuckled softly. "Sir, I was just doing my job," but the CEO shook his head. "No, James. You did more. You reminded me that no matter how high we rise, we should never forget to stay grounded." From that day forward, Mr. Collins changed. He began greeting employees by name. He started listening instead of commanding. He even joined James once during a coffee break, surprising the entire staff. Word spread quickly across the company: the CEO was different. Months later, the company faced a crisis. Markets crashed, investors panicked, and employees feared losing their jobs. But this time, Mr. Collins didn't hide behind numbers or cold decisions. He gathered his staff, stood before them, and said, "We will face this storm together. Because a company isn't built on titles or corner offices, it's built on people. Every single one of you matters." The employees, who once saw him as distant and unreachable, now felt his sincerity. They worked harder, stood united, and together, they saved the company. And when success finally returned, Mr. Collins didn't credit himself. He stood at the podium and declared, "The strength of this company lies not in me, but in us." In every person, from the boardroom to the janitor's closet. The audience erupted in applause. But James, standing quietly at the back of the room, simply smiled. Because he knew that was the moment the CEO had truly become a leader. Years later, when Mr. Collins retired, he was celebrated not just as a successful CEO, but as a leader who cared. Employees spoke of his wisdom, his kindness, and his humility. But when Collins himself was asked in an interview, "What was the most important lesson you learned in your career?" he didn't mention profits, mergers, or victories. He paused, smiled gently, and said, "I learned it from a janitor. He taught me that true greatness isn't about power or wealth. It's about how you treat people who can do nothing for you." The audience fell silent. Those words pierced deeper than any business strategy could. James eventually retired too. On his last day, the CEO, now a mentor and elder, walked him to the door personally. Not with formality, not with ceremony, but with gratitude. "James," he said, "you may have swept the floors, but you also swept away the dust from my pride. I will never forget that." James simply smiled, adjusted his old cap, and replied, "Sir, respect and humility cost nothing. But they mean everything." And with that, he walked away, leaving behind a legacy stronger than any corner office or stock portfolio. So, what does this story teach us? That titles fade, that riches vanish, that power is temporary. But respect, humility, and kindness live forever. The CEO once thought greatness came from being above others. But the janitor reminded him, true greatness comes from lifting others up. And that is the story of the CEO and the janitor. A reminder that no matter where life takes you, never let success blind you to the value of others. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because here we learn, aspire, master, reflect, and evolve together.